Welcome back, fourth graders. Hope you had a great St. Patrick's Day yesterday. We're going to move on today and talk a little bit more about our second post-it, that word onomatopoeia. I hope you've been saying this word and practicing it. It's a mouthful, the word onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, remember, that's a word that sounds like the noise it makes. Here's an example. The dog knocked over the vase with a crash. Onomatopoeia is that word crash. That's a word that describes or imitates the sound. That's exactly what we put on our post-it note, remember? Words used to imitate or used to describe a sound. That's onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Let's practice still again on 3. Unmute your mic. Say onomatopoeia. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Very good. Onomatopoeia. And when your mic's off, kind of just say it to yourself over and over again. Keep practicing. Onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia. The word before that, alliteration, alliteration, alliteration. These are words that are difficult to say, but if you can pronounce them, then you can start to learn them. It's hard to learn about a word you can't pronounce. The sentence that we looked at first, this dog knocking over the vase with a crash, that word crash is onomatopoeia. There's a poster down here with a lot of words that are onomatopoeia. In other words, they're sounds given off by, maybe it's an object. Like the cymbals here make a crash. Or the lightning bolt makes a zap. Some onomatopoeia, some sound words come from animals. Like you see that snake with a hiss and a moo and a bzz, bzz for the bees flying by. Some are made by people, like a chew. So all these words are onomatopoeia. And we use them all the time, whether we realize it or not. So now that you're getting a better understanding of this word onomatopoeia, the question becomes, how does this really help us? Why is it important for us to study this or understand it? What does it really do for us? Well, let's take a look again. Remember, figurative language, it's using words in a way that add color or interest. It makes our writing and our reading so much more colorful and interesting when we use figures of speech or figurative language. We had an example of this just recently with our personal narratives. Mrs. Husong, remember, talked about how she ate her friend's chips. Well, she could just say ate her friend's chips, perfectly fine, nothing wrong with that sentence. Or Mrs. Husong crunched on her friend's chips. Much more colorful, much more interesting to hear that second sentence. The word crunch then is an example of onomatopoeia. And we understand now how that makes things more interesting, more colorful. You want to read this sentence more than you want to read that sentence. Well, I have another sentence here. I'm assuming that Mrs. Lang plays some sort of instrument, so I'm pretending like I think she plays a flute. I'm just guessing. But it has a sentence here. Mrs. Lang played her flute. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that sentence, is there? Or Mrs. Lang toodle-tooed on her flute for St. Patrick's Day. I'm not sure if Mrs. Lang plays a flute or if she actually would have done that on St. Patrick's Day, but it sure sounds a lot more interesting for her to toodle-too on her flute instead of just to say a sentence like played her flute. Much more colorful and interesting. So now that you get the hang of it, I have a few more sentences, some examples here, using some of the other people in our fourth grade team, some of the other teachers. just in case they thought they were getting off easy. Oh, no, it's not the case. We got Mrs. Hingle, Mrs. Schaff, Mr. Van Horn. What I want you to do is, I'm going to have you pause right here and read these examples together, trying to find the onomatopoeia, the figurative language, the words that make things interesting and colorful. So pause here, share with your class, see if you can pick out where the onomatopoeia is in each of these sentences. I have one more sentence for onomatopoeia, those words that sound like the noise they make, like crashing and banging and booming. This one happens to go along with Honey Rose, and she is on her way back to Minnesota, but while she was up there at Mars, I didn't want to share this with you because I didn't want you to get nervous. She was actually driving around in that Mars rover. More specifically, though, Honey Rose crashed and smashed the Mars rover. Yikes. This was an unseen video. I just didn't want to share it with you guys so that you would be nervous or scared for Honey Rose. She's okay. Everything turned out all right other than the Mars rover was out of commission because Honey Rose crashed and smashed the Mars rover, driving way, way too fast. Here we have again some onomatopoeia. Crashed and smashed. Those words make things so much more interesting. That's why we have figurative language. Well, you're going to move on now to an assignment with some onomatopoeia. There's one other video that your teacher may share with you that shows examples of onomatopoeia with real life video of what that sound could look like. And then you're going to move on to a page on Canvas where you do some cutting and pasting and uploading of images that go along with some onomatopoeia. All right. Well, good luck. We will see you again tomorrow.